Hello, welcome to the 8th episode of Sam and Voy reviewing Sam's code. No, in fact, today we're not doing code review. We are only talking about Sam's journey of becoming a software developer. And that is because today we are stopping coding and we're starting to look at job applications. It's been already quite a few months that Sam has been learning coding and preparing himself, and now we think it's time to start sending some applications out. Therefore, today we will be reviewing Sam's CV, curriculum vitae, resume, and talk about various things regarding the CV, such as whether you should include a photo in the CV itself, what kind of information should you be putting in there, how consistent you should be, how you should make sure that your CV is readable, how you should kind of consider the person that will be reading your CV, who will they be, and what information and knowledge they may have, what perspective they'll have. So getting into those details and trying to adjust the CV as we're building it right now, keeping it in mind. Eventually, we get to talking about what we'll do next, which is the cover letter and how to extract and scrape information from job postings, from websites of companies you could be applying to create a little bit more information that you could underline and kind of pinpoint when writing a cover letter, when applying for a particular job. But that will be just the next episode. So for now, focusing on the CV and how to do it right. Bearing in mind, this is just our opinions on stuff. We're not job advisors. We're not professionals in the field of job application or recruitment. So this is just us exchanging some information. Therefore, take all the advice given with a grain of salt. But yeah, we'd love to hear what you think about it and whether you agree or disagree with some of the points we make. So as always, hope you find something useful and enjoy the episode. Cheers! Let's go. Good afternoon, Sam. How are you?
Buenas tardes, boy. Muy bien, gracias. I got it wrong. I was going to say y usted, but that's too polite, isn't it? It's y tú.
Yeah, if we're in South America, that'll be fine, I think.
Yeah, that's what I'm used to.
Good man. Yeah. Very good. Very good, mate. Yeah, very, very nice. Yeah, the evening. How was the last week of coding going for you?
Yeah, good. Thanks, mate. I'm just trying to think what I've been doing. Just tidying up portfolio, learning how to make things responsive and look good in mobile, which I thought I knew, but apparently I didn't. So been getting used to using the Chrome dev tools a bit more efficiently.
Nice.
Yeah, adding a few more tweaks and stuff. Yeah, just making sure the portfolio and the CV are updated, ready for the next phase. And also just started learning a bit about Webpack last couple of days.
And how's that going?
So that was on my list. Yeah, it's quite interesting. Yeah, I think my knowledge of Gulp definitely helps understand what Webpack does. And it's cool to see, obviously, Webpack does a lot more than just, basic builds.
Tell me about it, because frankly, I don't even know that much about Webpack.
Yeah, I mean, I've just scratched the surface. Obviously, it's a module bundler, as they call it. So it's slightly different from a compiler, but from what I gather, it does everything that Jest and a lot of other things can do, and a lot more. And it also does something called tree shaking, which I found out about today, where it removes any code or modules that don't actually get used in the final build. So therefore making your build sizes a lot smaller.
That is useful, eh?
Whereas, without that, it would just compile everything and put it into there. But, it works out what doesn't actually get used, mainly around sort of node modules and stuff like that, because you're importing a lot of stuff. But, when it comes to the final code, a lot of it doesn't get used. You can import variables, not use them, yada, yada. So that's just surface level, but I see it a lot more on job listings, and I think I get the impression, and in fact one of the YouTube comments on the video I had today was Webpack has basically killed Gulp, and it seems to be heading that way, so I thought it'd be worthwhile at least me knowing some basics in it.
Cool. Brilliant. No, definitely. I didn't know about the Webpack killing Gulp, but if that's the way it went,
that was an opinion, but I do see it around a lot more. But again, there's no harm in knowing, because Webpack, obviously, you're not going to need a lot of the stuff if you're just doing small stuff. So something like Gulp is more than sufficient. So I thought, well, let me just go and have a look at it, and then I've got some experience in it, and who knows where I'll end up. They might not even use it. or they might do. So
No,
no harm in just going to check it out.
fair play. No, good. Definitely, if something is becoming a standard, then it's good to catch up on it. Or at least have an idea what it does. So good choice there.
Exactly.
Yeah. So today, exciting day, we are going to be talking about something else than code for the first time. It's 8th episode today. So for 7 episodes, we've been talking about coding. Today, we're going to be looking at, preparing ourselves for a job application, right? So obviously, we discussed this in the last couple of calls that you did a great job over the last, 7-8 months, learning all these things. And pretty confident that it's the time to start spreading the web and connecting yourself with all the potential employees that you could be working for, right? So it would be a good idea to give a quick review on both the curriculum vitae as well as the sort of just applying process and sort of what things you may want to be saying to the people that potentially may employ you, right?
Yeah, sounds cool.
Cool. So do you want to start by maybe bringing up your CV and we could give that a quick review? Not to say, probably we should make a disclaimer here. Neither of us is professional job advisors, and this is not this is not job advice that may necessarily apply to everyone. More than anything, this is just what I think about applying for certain jobs, and whatever Sam says is what Sam thinks about applying for jobs. It's going to be, it's going to differ. Let's recognize it. It's going to differ every time you make an application, the company you're applying for, the industry you're in. There are so many differences. So it's not easy to just kind of generalize like that. But we thought, it'd be a cool thing to nonetheless speak about it briefly and just see what kind of things we think about making a job application.
So here we go. This is my CV stroke resume, depending on where you are in the world. And the first thing you can see is I've done it all on one page.
Nice.
Just to keep it more concise.
Definitely.
Like over the last, I guess, sort of 6, 7, 8 months, as well as learning the code, I've been keeping an eye on what kind of projects to build, how to make a portfolio, what to add to your CV, and getting some ideas about the job application side of things as well. So I've been storing up a load of notes over this time. So my CV was sort of ready a couple of months back, and I'd been building it as I went.
Well, that's good.
So keeping it one page was one of the main points that I got. So that's what it looks like visually. Obviously, you can't read this for Beans at the moment, so I will zoom in accordingly and just tell me if you can see all that. Okay. The main sections, I'll zoom out again, it's probably easier. I've got a summary, which is basically just a very short bio. And there's certain strategies I've had and used in there. Nice. I've got my links and my contacts. And these are all in, hierarchy, in as much that the links and the contact go to my portfolio or my social media channels and a contact email address.
Yeah.
And then below that, you've got skills and knowledge. So skills being more like the languages and the libraries, and knowledge being more sort of zoomed out meta skills that aren't necessarily all coding related.
Okay.
And then scrolling down into experience, which is basically job experience or work experience. And then I've only got my last sort of 3 relevant positions in there with a bit of detail.
Definitely, yeah.
I've added a learning section. So this gives people an idea of what I'm currently learning and in fact, this needs to be updated. I didn't do that bit. Just to show how passionate I am about learning stuff and what kind of things are in my pipeline.
Okay.
And that kind of helps with, I guess, I put stuff in the learning. So it shows people that at some point I probably will learn about Gatsby, Gulp, and Docker. But I don't know enough yet to have them in my skills section. So
How
it's
interesting. I've never seen a CV with that, but that is such a good idea.
Well, this is I did have a review by someone who runs their own consultancy a couple of months back, and this is what he suggested is he would like to see how passionate people are about what they're learning, and he said, hey, having a section like that here's the current things I'm learning. Because I think I told him about our job prep list, and he said that's brilliant. If you can somehow incorporate that into the CV, that will be really useful.
Nice.
So I thought, well, let me have a learning section. So, although, like I said, these things, I guess Gatsby and Gulp can be now moved. In fact, they have been moved to the skills section, and that learning can then be updated to what am I doing now, like Webpack, right? and all these kind of things. So that needs updating. Education, just a quick section on there on my qualifications, and volunteer experience, which I think alludes to the kind of stuff that I do outside of work and gives the impression that I guess I do stuff for other people and help stuff. So
no, it's relevant, definitely.
Yeah. So what was interesting is when I initially sent this CV to the other guy to review, it wasn't in this order, and he basically said, look, these are the kind of things that need to be at the top because they're going to be what's more important. People don't necessarily care about the education. They want to know, what do you know?
Mm-hmm.
So
Good
this
advice,
has all been rejigged in hierarchy, and you can see the portfolio is in bold. These are all links that go directly through to my individual profiles as well. But essentially, I get the impression you want to get people from the resume directly into the portfolio so they can see, all right, well, you talk a big game about your skills. Let me see if you can use them. So even from day one, I guess from day 20, I realized the importance of having a GitHub account and stuff uploaded. So definitely doing that 100 days of code challenge just shows a lot of activity on my GitHub profile.
Definitely.
And then also using those projects for my portfolio.
Decent.
So because you probably haven't seen this other than if you've looked at it via the portfolio. But here is my resume as it stands. Obviously, the learning section needs a bit of slight updating, but other than that, this is it how it is. And what I did recently was just change the fonts a bit so it looks kind of similar to my portfolio because they were kind of a bit disjointed. But at some point I'd like to have consistent branding between like my website, my portfolio, and a lot of my documents and stuff like that.
Definitely. And readable fonts that are consistent do help a lot.
So this is all one font, but just different text hierarchies. Because I mean, yesterday or the day before, I was reading about typography and web design basics. And readability, spacing, how some fonts look similar to others and some don't. So I thought, let me just keep this simple, keep it in one font, and just some parts are bold, some parts are whatever the opposite of cursive is.
I don't know either.
I'm open to any thoughts, opinions, and
cool.
I wouldn't even call it criticism. So hit me with your points and knowledge.
Let's roll with it. Okay. So it's good. It's really good. It's, first thing you can easily tell is that it's well laid out, like it's pleasingly designed. A lot of CVs will be hard to understand just because of their layout. So on that level, at least, it's great. It's great. It's pretty straightforward. You've got this sort of, big and easy to read headings that then lead you to content, right? So that is useful. Okay, so starting with the tops, I think one useful thing about this design is that you still got plenty of margin if you need to add into it. I think that it's good to leave yourself a little bit of margin and understand that margin can and should be taken over when you think you should add more details, right? So in your current design, we've got about 15% of the page occupied by the top of the page, which looks nice and sleek. But should you need to, you can just push that up, and you can add a little bit more extra data in there, which is useful, right?
Yeah.
So I think understanding that design should first and foremost serve providing the information you need, not necessarily sticking with the pretty looking design is a good thing. You're not at that stage, possibly yet, but it's good to, I think it would be good to keep that in mind. Like if you need to just push that thing on top, and you've got that extra margin that's available for you. And I think same happens for both sides.
Yeah.
Now, going from there, let's speak about something that I think is quite, I wouldn't call it controversial, but it's very subjective. Your CV has no photo of you.
Yes.
I strongly believe, and we can talk about that, but I strongly believe it's a good idea to add a photo into your CV. Now, you didn't do it, and I'm just wondering what's your logic behind it, what's your reasoning, and then we can talk about that.
Yeah, no, interesting point. I guess there's two schools of thought on it.
Exactly, yeah.
My initial thought was probably the same as you. Well, let me have a photo because, people can see what I look like. It brings that human element. And, I'm not the best looking guy in the world, but I'm about fifth.
Second.
You beat me to it. But the other school of thought is, I guess unconscious bias. So people can, make an unconscious judgment on you as a person just from that visual reference. So that was an interesting one. Basically, I just picked it up from other sources, is to not use a photo because there's not a photo on my portfolio either. So I just opted for that, just to keep it neutral and then get them into the portfolio and the meat and bones of it as soon as possible. And then they can make the judgment based on my work rather than, and I say unconscious because a lot of people might have these thoughts but not know they have them.
No, I agree.
It's just human nature about making judgments. So that's the only reason, really, is just to avoid that and just get them into the portfolio seamlessly without making a judgment about. I guess thinking about it, they could potentially. I guess they wouldn't know how old I am, but
definitely
some
not.
people might have certain opinions on a 40-year-old developer.
Well, if you put your age in there, yeah, but you don't look 40. That's for sure.
Okay,
you know this. You don't.
Yeah, but just to give people an example of what I mean when I say unconscious bias.
Good point. Yeah.
So that was the only reason. So it wouldn't bother me to put a photo in, but I thought I'd keep it out just to let my work do the talking, basically. And then once people go into any of my profiles, my face is plastered all over there anyway. And obviously,
true.
Instagram, I'm doing videos in there. It's just to avoid that initial unconscious bias.
So to me, the reason why I like to put a photo in a CV, and I think it is a good idea, is that we are, and you recognize it. It's a position when you'll be interacting with other humans, and the type of human you are influences it heavily. So I stand in a position when I think, confidently I can say that about myself. I'm a nice guy, and I want to show I'm a nice guy, and I want this to be my strength. I want this to speak for me, and totally, people could disagree with this. Fair play, but I think having that sort of confidence and that belief aids with a general picture of, well, will be a nice person to work with. And that heavily depends on the photo you're going to attach. So, thinking about what are you showing there is very important. If, let's be honest, it is essentially turning yourself into a marketing, into a brand. So, the more, not necessarily about how good looking you are, obviously that's not the point, but the more well presented you are in that photo, the better impression you're making. Ergo, I believe it is important to put a bit of effort and make that photo professional and good looking and convey the right message, in which case the bias works towards you. It works for your benefit, because you will get the positive bias out of it. I absolutely agree that the bias will appear the moment somebody sees your face. That is so correct. It's about understanding that, okay, well, it can be a tool that will leverage the chances in my favor. If I can show that I'm nice, easygoing, fun, I mean, not to marginalize anybody here, because that's inappropriate, but people want to know you're a nice guy or a nice girl.
Yeah.
And I think that CV alone may not convey that message. You're in a very lucky position when you've got a ton of Instagram videos that prove that you're a very nice guy, and it's super easy to learn it from there. But in cases where you wouldn't have that access, an access to this sort of a medium where you present your nice side in any other way, I think a photo in some of these places will help quite heavily. And it's good you've got it on your LinkedIn, on your GitHub, other areas. That's good too. It's just, I'm seeing it as a, someone may look at your CV laying on a pile of another 100 CVs and just kind of browse through them. And that will be the only chance you'll get, essentially, right? To just stand out in one way or another.
Yeah.
So, I would argue in a lot of positions, how nice of a person you are can be quite decisive. There's a lot of people saying, well, I wouldn't say they're saying it, but I've experienced it frequently in various companies where how nice of a person you are outweighs a lot of the skills you may have. Because the logic is we can teach you so much, but we cannot teach you to be a nice person. We cannot do that. So it has a lot of value. And I feel that, again, I'm in a convenient position where I can confidently say, I'm a nice guy when I work for a company. People can easily interact with me and I had good relationships with people. So I want to show it. I want to showcase that part of me so that somebody hiring me would see that straight away. Very opinionated thing. It's so subjective. So you can be on either side of these arguments. I think you brought up a very good point for not doing it. I just wanted to show the other side of that story. I think.
I'll definitely take it into consideration. Yeah, I mean, you said the word I was thinking of is leverage. Like leverage that bias in my favor. Then,
essentially.
So I will. I mean, what I might do is just make two versions. Have one with, one without, and do some split testing maybe.
Let's see how many jobs I get from one and from the other.
Yeah, just a quick one as well. I mean, well, firstly, this was just done using a template on Canva, so I didn't actually design this.
Right.
But thoughts of having web developer up there, and what variations or having a title up there?
Yeah, it's solid. Web developer is a good way to put it.
Okay.
Definitely, it's good to give yourself a title.
There's a lot of different permutations of it. Front-end web developer and front-end developer and
web developer,
software engineer, software designer.
Yeah, so some of them do have more specific meanings. When you speak of software engineers, for instance, that's a little bit more specific. Web developer in your case is fine. On my website, on my CV also, it says developer, as simple as that, because I was in web, I was in mobile, I was in quite a few different places, and I felt it's unnecessary to really make it specific in that case. In your case, though, it is and it can be specific because you are a web developer. Simple as that. It works well. Yeah, and the design you chose is nice. It's sleek. On the design, actually, nice you moved to that as well. I have a feeling the font may be too small. Did you think about that?
Yes. Oh yeah, big
what's
time.
What's the size of it?
I think it's 9 or less.
Yeah, I think I'd bump it to at least 10 or 11. Because again, we want to increase readability and make it look cool, but not at the price of readability, right? Yeah. So if we're going to occupy a bit more space and it will not look as sleek as it does, or we have to drop those nice borders, move the top a little bit more, decrease the margins between items, whatever it takes, if readability increases, then we're winning. We're making right decisions.
Yeah, I can easily do that. Yeah, because a lot of the time whilst I've been working on this CV, I'm zoomed in a lot because you can't read it when you're zoomed out. So it's only dawned on me now, because I was going to print this out yesterday and have a hard copy and just do some tweaks off that. But yeah, just that massive black block that takes up a lot of the page basically. And if
you or anyone will have to print this, actually that may be a good reason you would want to change that big black block, because it looks sweet.
Yeah, I might invert it.
Make everything else black and that square white.
Yeah.
What? That was a joke. Don't make the entire page black.
No. Sorry, just invert that black square. Like have it.
I know.
Have a I don't know. Maybe it might work. I'll have a play, but yeah, definitely. Yeah, no. Definitely, when I zoom out, that font size is ridiculous. Again, looks cool, but to the detriment of UX and readability. So again, it's me finding that balance between minimalism and UX.
Yeah,
so, valid point.
And when it comes to that black block, yeah, I'd probably say that's a strong do change. Even though it looks cool, I agree. But you don't want whoever, recruiter, receptionist saying, "Oh, we're not going to print this because it's going to occupy so much of our ink, and ink is pricey these days. So we don't want you to be dropped out of the stash because of your black square, right?"
Yeah.
Right.
All valid points. Yeah.
Cool.
Cool. Noted.
Okay, so following from that, maybe let's move to the point you brought up that was kind of interesting, the learning section. Mm-hmm. So it's a great idea to sort of say, my roadmap, that's what I'm going to be doing, right? Yeah. I'm at this stage in my life, sure, but there is also future. I don't want to show you just the past. I want to show you what I'm about to be doing. If you see this in March, well, then you know that by the time it's June, I probably will know a little bit more about these things. Great idea. Only thing I'd say about that is the word learning doesn't tell me what that is. So we'd either rephrase it, or there's nothing wrong with adding like a subtitle to some of these headings to explain exactly what is this section about. Because learning, to me, it fits too closely with education. And even if this is me just, not understanding the exact meaning of these two words intuitively as I should, you could argue, somebody else could also have similar problem, reading that. So I would say the word roadmap would fit better here for me. But I don't know if you being a native English speaker, you'd have a better suggestion for that.
No, well, it's interesting because you're, with all due respect, not a native English speaker, that you've highlighted to me that it does sound quite similar to experience. I guess to native speakers, it kind of, if you've already got experience there, learning on the other side of the page isn't going to be the same thing.
Sorry, did I say experience? I meant education. Sorry, I meant education.
Oh, yeah, sorry, yeah. You did say education. I was just looking at the wrong part of the page. But even then, they could all still be the same thing. Learning, experience, education could technically be the same thing. Obviously, you can look at the sections on here and know that they're not. But yeah, you make a valid point. And funny enough, when you were talking, roadmap was the word that I thought, maybe I could use roadmap because that's what it is. Yeah,
I feel it's used in
like
software a lot.
Future learnings or currently learning.
Yeah, but
I just kept it to one word.
No, good. And like I say, roadmap is quite widely used by software community as sort of stuff we'll do. Yeah. Like, if you go to any app, if they provide some sort of information about what's going to be released in the future, I would say very often it's going to be called roadmap. So that's a good word. And it's very clear because what I think is, yes, I understand the difference, like intuitively, not being a native English speaker, I intuitively understand the difference between learning, experience, and education. But what I do not understand is what do learning mean on your CV? I know what education does. I know what experience does on your CV. What exactly does learning do on your CV? Because I know the word, I'm not sure about what has Gulp, Docker, and Gatsby, where do they fit, on your timeline. Whereas roadmap, I'd instantly understand you're about to be learning about these things, or you're about to get better at these things, or they're upcoming. Essentially, that's a very clear word, I think. So I would just say
good
that
point.
about that.
Yeah, I would definitely tweak that to make it more intuitive.
Okay,
if that's the right word. But valid point.
So next thing, you've got links and contact as actual links, so you can click on them. Now, that's assuming somebody will indeed have it in a format that it can be clicked on, and for whatever reason that stays correct, that is still valid and it still works. We probably want to prepare ourselves for all these 10-20% of whoever sees your CV that either sees it in paper and it's printed, or they click on it and nothing happens, or their PDF browser doesn't support links, or PDF is not a very sort of standardized experience. Different PDF browsers and kind of viewers will respond to links in a different way. Therefore, it would be good to have a backup that you can fall back on when that doesn't work. So, I would essentially think, what if somebody prints this? How can we still help them reach what we want them to reach? Because if it works this way, brilliant, but let's make a backup for when that doesn't work, right? So what I'm thinking is, it probably will be good to have one place where they can go and then reach all the other places. So I'm thinking if we, for instance, just put an URL for your portfolio, then from your portfolio, they should be able to reach your GitHub, your LinkedIn, your Instagram, right?
Yeah, all of that is on my portfolio.
Exactly. So what I'm thinking, instead of, because we could put, actual URL links for all of these different things. But we could just put one, which is say portfolio. If they can see that you have Instagram, LinkedIn, and GitHub, but they can access all these through your portfolio, just to reduce clutter. Like we could simply put your either links or maybe handles to things like Instagram, YouTube. You could put your channel name on YouTube, your Instagram handle, your LinkedIn profile, I think. And GitHub profile as well, we could just put names. I think that alone would help. So, if I want to just go Google Instagram Sam Chilcott, I'll get there. If I want to go Google GitHub Sam Chilcott, I'll get there. So add information that, without having access to those links, I can easily reach you, reach that piece of information of yours.
Good point.
There is a backup to be able to fall back on.
Yeah, brilliant. Yeah, because I'm just thinking, bar YouTube, all of those are available on the portfolio. But yeah, because I guess the other good thing is all of my handles are the same. So my GitHub is Sam Chilcott, LinkedIn, Sam Chilcott, Instagram, Sam Chilcott. It's all the same. If that makes sense.
It does, yeah.
So again, it just looks tidier. But yeah, no, valid points. I guess I'd considered them printing, but not thought about, well, if they print it, they're not going to be able to access
none of these things.
The hyperlinks,
Yeah. So for portfolio, I would include it. When you put websites, you can skip the HTTP, ://www. You can start from portfolio.samchilcott.com. And that will arguably occupy not much more than your email, sam@samchilcott.com.
Yeah.
You've got space, mate. You're in a convenient place where you can make these kind of changes. So
yeah, I've got plenty of space.
Yeah, bro. Easy.
Yeah. Font 9 for the win.
Not for long.
Yeah. I know.
Your GitHub, LinkedIn, Instagram, YouTube. Think about it. I would consider adding a handle, but on each of them essentially, just to make things more bespoke. As bespoke, like verbose, sort of, in there. So you definitely cannot get it wrong if you've got it printed.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. No, that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Valid point. No, brilliant. I'll do that.
And the fact that your portfolio is bold suggests they'll probably see it first. So from there, if they want to, they can easily navigate to all the other channels. That's fine as well.
Yeah. My YouTube isn't in there, but there isn't. My YouTube's my least updated out of those channels.
Okay. Would you consider taking YouTube out of this list?
Yeah. I guess I've got it up there to demonstrate that I have my own channel, which demonstrates my ability to be on camera and also that I produce content.
Okay.
Yeah. So again, that's something that was always encouraged from day one, was have a social media presence. Luckily, I'd had that before in prior careers anyway. So yeah, it's more of a not virtue signal, but it's, what's the word I'm looking for? It's someone to say, hey, I've got a YouTube channel.
I'm a YouTuber.
There's stuff on it. Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I could quite easily knock that one off, because as soon as they go to my Instagram, they'll see that's where all my videos are. Because
I'm thinking, okay, so we're trying to solve the same problem with the two mediums right here. We want to show the social presence and that you're a cool guy. They can see it either by going to YouTube or by going to Instagram, but going to both isn't going to help. They're not going to learn more if they do both at the same time.
No.
So assuming they only will go to one or the other, is it better they go to your Instagram or is it better they go to your YouTube?
Oh, Instagram all day long. So and also the YouTube's the only one that doesn't have a bespoke handle yet.
So let's not give them a chance to go to YouTube. Let's make sure everybody, if they want to check your social and if they want to see if you're a nice guy, they will always go to your Instagram.
Yeah.
That's my logic.
Makes sense.
Yeah. Cool. Nice. Right. So going from there, back to UX, I would say. Yep. I think you could tweak a couple of things to increase readability yet again.
Yeah.
So one, the margins above and below a heading seem to be equal, maybe are equal, but they seem to be equal. And I feel a headings, I mean, this is just my intuition, like design intuition. So this isn't really UX as much as a UI, but the heading below should be smaller than the heading above, essentially, when it comes to title sections, things like that. Because otherwise it may be not clear whether the heading is describing the section above or below. In majority of cases, it is the section below and people understand it. But just to avoid any kind of confusion, it's always better to leave a little bit bigger margin on top, a little bit smaller on the bottom. And again, that's just comes to more like intuition than, me quoting anything in particular.
Yeah. No, you're right. Yeah. Again, that was the default in the template. So I just didn't fiddle with it. But again, looking at it, even since day one, it hasn't felt right. So I think I've been too scared to change the template because it was designed by a designer. But now I'm thinking, well, no, let me rejig it until I'm happy with it. So
definitely.
Also valid point, because it doesn't sit well on my eye either.
Yeah. Okay. Second piece of feedback in that field as well is that I think you could use a little bit more kerning. I think kerning is the right word. The spacing between each line. So right now they feel, possibly because of the small font, but they feel quite close together and they're separate points. So this text would be good for continuous text flow. For instance, if I read the second sentence from the summary, autodidact front-end developer. Is that how you read it? Autodidact? Autodidact, thank you. Autodidact.
Do you know what it means?
I understand it after having read it, but I've never heard of this word before. Yeah, self-taught.
Yeah.
Line
height.
Maybe drop that word in case someone doesn't know it. Or is that
no, good point. Good point.
I'm thinking it's, at least to me, it's a very uncommon word. And I'll just think about, a non-native English speaker looking at that and going, the hell does that mean?
Because I guess, one of the other things that I saw sort of discussions on when it comes to this kind of thing is, do you put that you're self-taught on the resume? Again, there'll be biases either way. So I guess autodidact was basically demonstrating that without using the term, but also the fact that I've done this in previous things. Like I taught myself how to do music production, did most of my own sort of coaching stuff myself. But you also make a very valid point. What if the person doesn't know that word? It's like, you tried to give it the big one and shot yourself in the foot. So very valid point, mate. Yeah.
Essentially with everything.
Alternative.
Yeah, with everything here is how likely it is that there is 10% of people that will not get something when it comes to designing something like that. Because amongst those 10% of people could be your dream job that, just ditch your CV into a bin just because of that thing. And we spoke about other things before, but now we're speaking about this particular word. So it's about reducing risk of, there is a percentage of people that will misunderstand it. In this case, misunderstand the word, but maybe in some other cases, it's like, what is the chance of them having bad eyesight and never being able to read your CV because it's too small, right? So again, readability, and it all comes back to asking yourself that question: how can I improve? Essentially, eliminate edge cases, because majority of people will get it probably and will be able to read this font size. Yeah,
but I don't know. I mean, It's a word I only learned like the last 3 years. So
it's a cool word. Yeah. Either way. So I was reading that word, that sentence just there. Sorry, autodidact front-end developer with a design eye and a top drawer soft skills. Good sentence. So to me, that sentence reads fine because of the kerning, because of the spacing between the lines. But everything else, I feel there should be more spacing between them because there are separate points. Almost like if you turn these into bullet points, you would know where each line starts, where each point starts. But because in your case you haven't put those bullet points, for me it's hard to understand. You essentially have 5 points 4 points you make in your summary. But to me, they feel like 1, 2, 5. Thank you.
Yeah.
5 points you make in your summary.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry. So at a glance, I can't tell that. And I probably should. With skills, it's easier. I can tell, I just can just look at it and go like, it's about 10 things you're listing there because they happen to be shorter, right? It's easier format. But with knowledge, again, it may be not as simple with, further points down the line. Yet again, just because I'm lacking those bullet points, I'm lacking some sort of visual representation of distinction between one thing and another.
Yeah.
I'm lacking that indication of, of where one thing starts, where another thing starts. So either bullet points, but if you want to keep it clean, then I would increase the spacing between the items, which again may or may not be available to you once you increase this at the font size. But I would look for one way or another way to indicate this is one item, this is another item. If if spacing won't work, you can do bullet points, and you can do bullet points like with dashes, right? These are a lot softer and a lot more sort of pleasing to the eye as well. So it's easier at a glance to just tell, oh, these are 6 points, these are 10 points. I think it increases readability altogether.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, because I think that's one approach. Again, I learned from doing a lot of reading about it was most of these sections are in bullet points rather than paragraphs, just because people. Time is valuable. People just want to be able to look at it and go, just fly through it. So they are bullet points, but visually they don't look like bullet points. So
exactly,
another very valid point. Boy.
No, but fantastic thing you observed there. That in general, structured text is easier to read than unstructured. That's the gist of why bullet points are easier to go through. And actually, going back to whether you should speak about being self-taught or not. Very personal and very subjective, but I say no.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't matter. You going to uni will come up on your education anyway, so they'll be able to see you haven't. And there's no need to reassure them that you haven't. That's clear. Whilst it doesn't really add or remove anything, and if anything, then I would go back to the picture conversation. It adds unnecessary bias. Because somebody may go, if he self-taught himself, he probably doesn't know all these things. Whilst it doesn't matter. If you can prove enough that you know your React, you know your HTML, you know your SAS, Git, all the things you've learned, then you being self-taught should matter nothing or very little here.
Yeah.
Which is why my opinion would be no. If anything, it will work against you. I don't think it will add anything. It may be irrelevant, but if anything it will add, it will just work against you. And I don't think it's dishonest by removing it. I don't think it's a piece of information that is like you're hiding something because you self-taught yourself. Truth is, you can learn so much over the internet these days that trying to marginalize someone just because they did, it's stupid. And I'll be honest with you, I self-taught myself all programming I ever did. Minus tiny bits we did in the uni, but that was completely irrelevant to what I did later. So it's a core, 90% of what I know is self-taught, and I've never used that word, and it never prevented me from doing anything. Nobody even asked ever. No one ever asked whether I'm self-taught or not. So that's my take on that particular subject.
Yeah, that makes sense. Makes sense.
Although it would be interesting to hear, opposite arguments if you can think of any, if our listeners can think of any, for why you should admit that you are self-taught. Okay, can we scroll down just a bit to see the rest of it for a second? Let's see what else comes up. So here we're going to font 8 now, aren't we? On front-end developer and coach, and these are going even lower. So we probably want to.
Big time. I probably don't need. Because again, there's hierarchy that was just built into the template, but I could just keep that the same font once I bump them all up, so it's not relatively smaller. But you can definitely have a fiddle because that is bloody tiny. Yeah,
for date, I like to break things up by putting it on italics or a lighter color, either way. But you've got a significant spacing there. Like that spacing actually works pretty well for distinguishing the title, the dates, and then the content, which is great.
Yeah.
And you are doing something fantastic that I think also a lot of people will forget about, is that you don't just say what it is, but you also say what you learned or you did during that time. What skills have you acquired? I think this is super useful. So here, this is more, again, commenting, maybe not necessarily on your CV, but sort of what I think is very useful to have in CVs is when you list experience points and education points, it's super important to say, well, what have you learned there? What was the thing that you've practiced during that time? And what kind of skills came out of it? So even looking at what you've got written here, I would think that we could possibly add and expand on some of these points. Because for instance, you being a coach has, improved your soft skills dramatically. Like you've learned a ton of things about interaction between people, about productivity, about the problems with procrastinations, right? Like just generally working with other people, listening to other people's problems, working with, finding solutions. I would love to understand more about that, I think, when I read this, because the point is that type of information isn't there to, put you on yes pile or no pile. Yes pile and no pile will be your headings, your, the dates of your experience, your skills. But then there'll be a point when you are already on the yes pile of somebody's office and it's you and another three people. And then they want to decide between the three of you, right? Who's going to be invited to an interview. I mean, okay, out of 3 people, you probably invite all 3 of them for an interview. But if there's 20 of you, you probably want to reduce that. I think that's when people will read into some of these details to understand who may be a better choice. And that's when having that little bit of extra of like what distinguishes you. You're equal on everywhere else, but who's got better soft skills? So in a place like that, it's excellent to add a little bit of extra of, what sort of skills you've acquired and essentially brag about it. Like, again, another point that people forget about is you should brag within limits and within truth, but you should brag about yourself. Like if you've learned shit doing coaching, talk about it all way and like really be proud of it. Like make it sound like you're proud of all these things you've done. I feel it's very easy to fall into the opposite of saying, oh, that wasn't important. I just did that. I did that for free, or, that was just voluntary work. I shouldn't mention that. Why would that matter? No, of course it matters. It matters a lot. Like that's what will distinguish you from other people. So don't be shy about your CV. Be brave and proud of it. Don't say lies. Don't write things that aren't true, right? But I feel, mate, I know you, so I know that you being a coach makes you so much better to work with, just because you self-taught or you acquired these skills that make you a very easygoing, nice guy with an enormous amount of understanding, I think, for other people. Like you're so good at listening to other people's problems because it was your fucking job, right? Like fair play. But I can even tell that just me being your mate. Like you're respectful to an extent that is just priceless. With so many other people, you could be so easily annoyed by them interrupting you, by them, just saying things they wouldn't want to hear. But you're not like that. And me as an interviewer, I would love to know this as well. And the only way I think you can have that come across is by recording videos, assuming they will watch them, but also providing information over here. What are the skills that made you better listener, better better person, better at those soft and social skills? So some of that you do write about, which is great. The only feedback I would have here is, can you expand? Can you expand on these things? Almost same thing with front-end developer, right? Like we definitely covered and spoke about some other things in here. If you're looking for a good list, then check out the headings on the previous videos that we did, because I pretty much cover every single thing we talk about. So you've got tons of little keywords you can be taking from there and just sticking in that little list over here. What are the things you've covered? Because you did cover them, and it's important to mention that during that time you have covered these things.
Yeah.
Sorry, I've been talking for a good while, and
no, it's right. I mean, these are all brilliant points. I've been making notes. Because one of the main feedback I got last review, which to be fair was probably about 2, maybe 3 months ago, was just beef up the that front end developer section. And at the time, I probably couldn't because I hadn't done that many projects. And like the CV was sort of, it had a good structure, but that was the one weak point, was that, well, I've got all this extracurricular stuff, but I haven't got a portfolio yet, because this was, months ago. So yeah, I think just beefing up, because that's the main thing I think people are going to be looking at as well, is, okay, well, what have you done? What have you done with all this knowledge? And I think, like you say, having it written as well as having a physical, a digital representation of it will definitely help. So I can, yeah. And again, I guess mainly just because of the formatting of the CV, I didn't bother embellishing Coach because it would have taken up too much space and gone into the bottom of the document. But thanks for reminding me, because I guess I do kind of take it, well, yeah, it's cool and I've got some good skills, but I'm a developer now, and the front end developer is the main section. But thanks for reminding me to embellish the other stuff, because it is all related when it comes to being a good employee, not just a good developer.
Absolutely. And going back to what we said before when we spoke about photos, and you can't teach someone to be a nice person and a nice coworker, or it's really hard, essentially.
I disagree, boy. But I know what you mean. But no, you're right. Yeah. And I think the more I can...
See, what I meant is no company will invest into you just to make you a nice bloke. They'll invest into your tech skills. They won't invest into you. Yeah. Although you can
pay for coaching.
Rarely they do. They do, but rarely. No.
No, valid point. And I think it's being able to demonstrate that in text as well as because they might not even get to see any videos I've done. So having it in text as well will definitely, it's going to do me no harm to have it there as well. So
absolutely. And you've got that margin we spoke about before. You've got plenty of margin to
I can rejig this. I mean, again, the amount of wasted space in this, again, looks cool, but could easily be beefed up all over the shop. So
totally.
Yeah.
Cool. So just here, the education section.
Yes.
Again, due to the fact that we discussed earlier, but I don't know if there are 4 points or there are less than 4 points. These are 4 different items?
Yes.
So what is City and Guilds in sound engineering?
Good point. It's like, I don't even know if they still exist. It's the name, or at least the brand of the qualification. So it's obviously an English thing.
So it's actually called City and Guilds.
Yeah, City and Guilds is like the examining board, I guess. So it's like, I don't know if you've ever heard of like a BTEC or a national diploma.
No.
Exactly, yeah. These are basically, they're not degrees, but they're forms of qualification that are at a lower equivalent and just branded differently, basically.
So,
but it's also a good point that not many people would actually know what City and Guilds is.
Yeah, like City and Guilds diploma. Could you say that maybe?
Good point.
Right? Because that would then read to me as a separate point. I thought it was so that you got diploma in transformation coaching from the City and Guilds in sound engineering. Like I tried to figure it out. What was the
interesting? Yeah, I guess. But periods might help as well, like full stops. But I guess because I've got neither a bullet point indicator or an end of sentence indicator.
Yeah.
So so in my head I know what it is because I created the document. But you're right.
Yeah. No, that's good. Volunteer experience, fantastic that you included. I wouldn't really have much comment on that in particular. Cool. So, do you wanna maybe zoom out? Let's have a look at the overview yet again, just a tiny bit. So that's split between skills and knowledge.
Oh yeah, we haven't gone in on knowledge.
Yeah. I mean, just altogether, like they almost feel like they belong to the same thing. It's just they're different skills. Like you could argue that, just as much as having a bit of experience with Gulp, you've had a little bit of experience with testing, right? They're to me, it even sounds like skills is actually languages and frameworks. Now, knowledge is in fact, knowledge is possibly a good word. Skills could be another good word, I suppose, there. But skills, you're listing languages and frameworks, essentially, aren't you?
Exactly that, yeah. So it's like a hit list of, technical, it is languages and frameworks. That's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
And maybe libraries.
Mm-hmm.
No.
Frameworks are libraries, essentially, so.
Yeah, good point. Anyway. Again, just those headings of just what I've picked up from different sort of websites. Mm-hmm. They are technically the same thing. I guess I put testing on there because if you've got maybe an HR person or a recruiter that doesn't know that Jest and Puppeteer are used for testing.
Oh yeah, it's good it's there.
They wouldn't know.
Yeah, no, it's definitely good it's there. What I'm thinking is that they almost sound like the same list to me. Like they should belong to a same list. Like that should be just a continuous list of things you know about coding.
Well, yes and no, because if you look at the second half of knowledge, like being able to create and host workshops it's useful to have listed up there, but it's not something that you learn as a coder. So it starts off coding related, but then merges into things like process improvement and like resource creation, which I just put up there because it's something I do, which I think is quite
it's good. It's
quite
good.
Cool to mention.
Yeah.
So like, I create my own documents and make those public so people can benefit from them. So nothing to do with a coding language.
Sure. No, so maybe it's more that that the word skills, like I would say that resource creation is a skill, process improvement may be a skill, creating hosting workshops is a skill as well. It was just that wording, that skills and knowledge.
Yeah.
I almost would feel like you could swap the two headings, the two titles, the skills and knowledge, and they would still fit. Yeah. Right? So it almost highlights the maybe not the issue with these, but if we could make that clarification better, it would help. So it could be as simple as, turning skills into languages and frameworks. If we can find a nicer way to put it, then we don't, we maybe want to. But you've got volunteer experience that is quite long as well. And again, it's not like we're missing space. Again, readability should win when it comes to fighting with nice layout and clean and short titles.
Yeah, I think I just picked up skills just because that's what most other places did. They listed them. But yeah, you're right. They could easily be swapped over, and there isn't. In my head, there's a distinction because that the list on the left is like languages and frameworks. The rest of it is sort of encapsulating stuff and peripheral stuff. Definitely just rewording the titles will make the UX a bit better.
Yeah. I mean, if we can think of a better word in the future, that would be great to replace. But for now, something along the lines of that would be good. I'm trying to also think whether we could phrase testing in any better way, but because I would want to make it clear that you would like it wasn't sort of quality assurance type of testing. Like you weren't a tester for a company. It was actually you were writing tests.
Okay.
So I'm trying to think how we could phrase this, because we could just
unit testing.
We could do unit testing,
unit and integration testing.
Yeah, but then you did three of them. You did unit, integration, and to end. So you could sort of say three of them, but then that's long. I think on my end I put it as writing tests, which also isn't nice, but at least you say you're not the one that does test some websites, right? You're not a quality assurance engineer.
Yeah, good point.
So rephrasing that testing, if we can't come up with anything better, just drop unit, integration, and end-to-end test. End-to-end, you could probably do E2E, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
So so that could improve. Process improvement. I'm wondering what exactly that would be, and why is it capital I where everything else is lowercase?
Good point.
Okay.
Don't know. Just don't know why it's capitalized. Yeah, it is a thing, and it's something I've always done. It's basically looking at a process and seeing how you can improve it. So it's something I'd done not knowing it was a thing, and it's something you can get qualified in. but like whenever I look at something, I'll tidy it up, make it quicker, make it faster.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's mine or someone else's, I'm all, like I said in maybe before, I'm always the kid that sends in feature requests.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha.
Like, oh, have you thought about doing this? Or so
yeah.
I guess it's not as self-explanatory as I thought. I guess if you look at the two words, you can figure out what it means. But
yeah, I know exactly what you mean. No,
I couldn't think of a better way of phrasing it. But it's just that's what I do. I look at things and change them to make them either look or perform better.
Okay. Sure. So that again could be subjective here. We could definitely look at different words. Sorry, not what you do, because I think what you do is great. But the word itself. So I refer to this because, funny enough, this is what I used to do. I had a job where my official title was pipeline developer, simply because in the animation industry, that's how you refer to people who do what you describe as process improvement. But essentially that you look at things happening and you do things to make them more optimized, faster, less resourceful, whatever, right? Resource heavy, whatever. So the way I call this is actually workflow improvement or workflow optimization. In either case, the word workflow to me sounds more direct at what is it that you're really improving or optimizing, because when I think process, we could be walking onto a danger zone of the fact that process actually means something in computing, and we're having that ambiguity here as to what are you really improving, whilst the word workflow doesn't necessarily describe anything specific in the world of coding, and is more often, I think, associated with what we want it to express in this particular case. That was just my little thinking here. Speaking about that capital I mean, I know you know this because I've seen your CV just now, and I noticed that you are very consistent, but it probably is worth saying consistency is key when presenting a good CV. If you don't maintain consistent styling, like some things are capital, some things aren't, your font changes, you sometimes finish with dots, sometimes you don't finish with dots.
I've spotted one of those.
All of these things, It essentially speaks, you don't care about the details. And if that's the message you're getting across when presenting a CV, you can probably figure out it's not a good idea. So it's painful to notice these things. It's good to have somebody proofread it and ask them to spot inconsistencies and fix as many as you can. It comes down to like as little things as, if you have one item just offset by a millimeter, that's one of the things that's easy to catch. And if you have, one, it's fine. If you just have one eye that's capitalized, that's fine. But the moment somebody spots 4 or 5 of these, the message is you haven't proofread it yourself. You haven't paid attention to it, or you have and you haven't paid attention to these things, which means that you don't care about these little things. Maybe that's not the message you want to, carry with your CV. So, yeah. But like I say, I know you know about this because I can tell that your CV is very consistent.
Thank you, mate.
Altogether. Okay. Anyway, so we made some good comments about the skills and knowledge. So let's zoom out yet again. I think they're brilliant. It's a good list. I don't know if we missed anything there. I hope we haven't missed anything on your skills and knowledge list, but that's just about everything we covered, isn't it? Git and GitHub. Yeah, I would love to almost mention like how good you got with Git and GitHub, so that you did branch management, conflict merges. Or did you fucking do the conflict merge? We promised. I know. I said I would do one for you, and I never did. I'm sorry.
No, that's fine.
No, because I'm editing the video from a month ago, and I say, "Oh, let's put it in voice notes. Things for voice to do. Create a merge."
Well, I forgot to. I noticed it the other day. I was like, "Oh yeah, we never did do that." That's because I've got Google Documents all over the shop.
Yeah, but to mention, you did really good job on the Git branching, doing a pull request, responding to issues. Like you're present. Yeah. This is useful, I think. Whether mentioning something like that, but possibly in knowledge could be.
I did think of that, because obviously when we look at testing, I almost did put, I've done unit tests, I've done integration, I've done end to end. But then you could look at all of the skills in that list and go, well, React. Well, technically, I've looked at this statement, I've looked at this, I've looked at this. With JavaScript, I've done this, this, and this. So you could be not opening up its inner worms, but for each of the things on there, there could be a list of things like Firebase. I did authentication, storage, database. Gatsby, I did. Well, I probably didn't do too much on Gatsby, but you know what I'm saying. You could go into more detail on all of those. But
and
I think
why not? We're not lacking
just
space.
because it's yeah. I suppose you could do.
No, go on. What do you think?
Why not? Just through level of granularity. I don't know if that's a word.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, because I think the people that are going to be looking at this will just. I guess the recruiters have probably got a tick list of skills, technology and languages, they want to fill. They're not going to know, what use state is and use effect, use memo are. And the people that do want to know will just find out from the portfolio. But then again, I suppose I could take your argument of have it in both, have it written and have it in the portfolio.
Yeah, what I'm thinking is with good design, you can still make it very readable, so that it's almost like indented. You essentially would speak a lot more about each of these points, but you could either make them bold so that's easy to skim through those skills, and then if you want to, then next to it you'd have a little bit more info on what does that involve. But my argument here is that, well, for instance, you did Firebase authentication and you did pretty well. You understood it pretty well. And if a recruiter was looking for someone with experience with web authentication, they wouldn't know this. Let's look through it. Let's see what else I could see through here. Well, with React, you did have a look at the what's it called? State management, I think. Right? So what if somebody's looking for someone who has experience in that field? Right? So it's good to have these as big chunky points that are easy to be like, has he ever even done React, or is he a Vue developer? I don't want to be looking for that information. I want this information to scream at me. So it's good to have this as, straight away. But at the same time, again, with some clever design, it's good to include a little bit more of what else you've got, underneath these points. In all fairness, I didn't do that in my CV. I just made my list a lot longer. So I have, I think it's maybe not a lot, but it is longer when I try to get into those details that I find relevant.
I think things like authentication. That is quite a cool thing to have on there. So even if it's just Firebase authentication in brackets or something, again, it just highlights that I don't just...
File storage, database, the fact that you interacted with a NoSQL database. I'm trying to look at other points that we see here. Gatsby, obviously you hosted it. You hosted it also on GitHub Pages. Is that what it's called?
Yeah, and Netlify, so those aren't even on that list.
Correct.
Again, I just neglected because it lined up nicely with knowledge and thought, I won't bother putting the extra one on.
Okay, right.
But yeah, that's a daft way of thinking of it.
I mean, if you can, then yes, but if there's a good reason not to, then forget about alignment, right?
Yeah.
I'm trying to think, what other things you have looked into on that list that could be worth expanding on. Maybe not every point needs to be expanded on. Fair enough. I think it's more it's sort of worth looking at this list and trying to come up with points that you could put down.
Yeah.
And then asking ourselves, can we make points about more than half of these things? In which case, it would be good to have them as subheadings, sub-points sort of thing. If not, if it's only like 20% of these things could expand, then maybe those extra points could simply be another entries on that, on that list, on that top level list, right, of skills. Because, arguably as much as experience with Firebase is a skill, experience with authentication is a skill. To me, these could be easily living on the same level. It's just, if we do change skills to languages and framework, then that should land on knowledge tab, right? But it's good to expose those things, I think. Quite valuable.
No, good point. Good point.
Okay. Right. I think we did a pretty good review already. Maybe I also want to leave some positive feedback, because you did a lot of things really well here. and I didn't focus on these. It's great you include a summary with a review of sort of what's your focus, what are you, you know, give us, you know, a elevator pitch about yourself. Again, I feel a lot of CVs miss that, and it's good to just get a little personal, you know, review of your own self. That's decent. So it's good you put that in there. It's good you maintain that consistency, something I did mention already. Amazing. Again, a lot of people would miss that. It's good you expanded on the points in experience. We mentioned maybe getting more in detail here, but again, very often I would see CVs that don't include anything. You just say, well, I was a front-end developer. I was a coach for that long for that company. Done. And what did you do there? For how long? What did you learn? It's excellent that you have a little bit of that. Again, so it's more about expanding on some of these points that we're discussing here, not the fact whether you should include them or not. Again, excellent idea about the roadmap, or what we call learning now, but I think that we decided to possibly call roadmap in the future. Excellent idea. I'm really happy you brought this in, because it's a really good point. I never considered doing that, but I probably will next time I redo my CV. So good info. Yeah. Cool. All right. I think we can close the CV chapter of this little discussion, unless you would have anything else you'd like to add.
No, just thanks for taking a look at it. And I've made 2 little scrap paper pages of notes, but these are all things, and I think that's how it just goes to demonstrate how valuable having a second pair of eyes, because a lot of this stuff is obvious, but I just didn't think of it. So this is all great stuff, and I will be editing my CV accordingly tomorrow morning. So thanks for looking at it. I mean, not just from obviously you've got a software background and experience in it, but even just things about like the language I'm using and the formatting and the layout, which is, nothing to do with programming. It's just to do with how to make a more readable CV. So yeah, no, thank you, mate. All valid points. And I think I've said before, I never take these as criticism. This is free data. In fact, I'm excited. I want to go and change this all now. So yeah, actually, it was something worth saying as well. No, you're welcome, mate. I'm really glad we can go through this, and it's great to say some of these things. But you highlight a very important point. Like, getting feedback is essential, isn't it? Being able to receive constructive criticism, even when it's negative, and don't take it personally. Like, you put effort into designing the CV. It may feel shit when someone comes and says, well, you should change this, you should call this differently. You made decisions that could be wrong. So accepting that from the beginning is essential for improvement, right? So you designing this thinking, well, I'm doing my best, therefore this must be the best out there. And then somebody else coming in and giving you feedback on that already puts you in a position where you're against improvement. You're against changing anything here. Whilst, doing your best, but understanding the fact that, you're making some calls that neither of us is really knowledgeable about any of these things, about, what's the best way to design a CV. Did you do a course? Did you read up about it a lot? I did a bit, but it doesn't put us in a seat where we can say, definitely this is the way to go. Nonetheless, it's good to have someone else comment and do say these things, just to, like you say, maybe mention the obvious, but you have to have the right mindset. And something I mentioned during, discussing your coach sub point is that you're really good at listening, at accepting feedback. So something definitely worth mentioning, that, just being open to other people's feedback and then taking it. Like, I won't be offended if you don't implement some of these suggestions that I gave you, and you're not offended by me making those suggestions, right? That's a healthy cooperation that has to exist for improvement, right? Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I guess again it goes back to being, a nice employee to work with.
Because that goes. I
definitely come at it from the angle of I want to listen to your feedback, and I will incorporate, everything that I feel is going to, improve the process or the workflow. And all of these notes I will do. I think the photo's the one I'm still on the fence about.
Fair enough. I was going to say that.
I can also see how I probably will put it on and see how it goes.
It'll be. It's not a game changer, I would say. We're talking about small biases, right? Like, you want to be. Yeah. A CV has a few things that will make big steps forward, like your skills, what you did, all that, right? These are massive, big chunks, and then a lot of other things that will be just small. If you can improve these small things, such as, a good photo, good consistency, good fonts, good readability, you are improving. So it's about making sure that both of these things are working well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wicked. I will edit first thing tomorrow morning. Thank you very much.
So that was a good review on the CV side. I feel that maybe next time when we do the call, we could also try looking into the cover letter application. So apart from, the CV being important and, all the points we raised, it's good to, to look at them and improve them. Also seeing, when you do find a job posting, what kind of things to be looking at and what things to take out of that and put them into your cover letter. So what sort of communication, what sort of message we want to be giving to the company we're applying to, essentially, right? Yeah,
that sounds cool, mate. I'm down for that.
Cool. So I think that'll be good for today. A little bit shorter than usual, but not reviewing tons of code and not trying to fix it live in these videos definitely cuts the time down. But I'm enjoying it, and it'll be good. We'll have this video about the CVs, and we'll have the next video about the cover letters and the discovering of the understanding. How to discover that sort of information you'd be looking for. So that'll be
that sounds super useful, mate. Yeah, cool.
Good little pair. Okay, Sam. Good. That'll be it. Ready for our awkward goodbye as usual?
No, let's keep it natural.
Let's keep it normal.
No, thanks again as always, mate. Yeah, I mean, these are super useful things that are going to keep me, they're not just useful for this job application, they'll be useful going forward for my next 10, however long that may span. So
hopefully so.
Thank you, mate, for your knowledge.
No, I appreciate it. And if you'd have any comments, or, anybody watching this, if you'd had any comments on our points and the things that we raised today about the CVs, then we'd love to hear about it. Yeah, it's, like I said, quite subjective. There isn't a lot of resources and information about this subject in particular. So it's good to have a kind of exchange and learn from each other, I would say. So wonderful to hear any feedback on what we discussed today as well. Definitely.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, always encourage comments and feedback. Yes,
definitely. All right, Sam, good luck with making these changes and cracking on with learning even more coding, and I'll catch you in about a week.
Cool. Sounds wicked, mate.
Cool.
Have fun.
All right.
Cheers, buddy.
Take it easy. Cheers.